Being a fucking physical human. I feel it. Anyways, okay, what are we doing? I'm telling a story about the stars and eating peanuts. Slightly congested. Last night, you know what I did before bed? Not gonna say. But it is a Scorpio thing, so. Wah! Never mind. Anyways, okay. Ignore me. So this is it. It's the 13th of November, and we've got this occult nonsense to try and make sense of the universe. And I get it, it's insane, but I want to like see it. Let me see if I go to the print section. Yeah, I like this more. Then I can zoom in nice and big. So what do we do to start? Well, first let's just get an impression. Let's just sort of see the shape, see the intersection points. So obviously this here triangle, oh man, this is mirrored, isn't it? I'm trying to see like this triangle here. Hello. I'm doing a thingy on YouTube. If you need the living room, let me know. But so this triangle here, it has an opposition, so that makes us want to tell a story of like two things going in completely opposite directions. So this sun and moon together, exactly opposite Uranus. And then this is a trine, so we've got a watery thing here connecting to here. And this is a sextile from Uranus to Neptune and Pluto to Neptune right there. That actually just changed because there was a trine between the two of them for a while. Pluto was at 28 and Uranus was at 21, so it just sort of made it out of that, like, I guess it's like a 7-degree orb. So that flow is not, I'm touching the TV instead of my computer. That is not as strong. So this is a square here, but again, not as strong. The thicker the line, the more mathematically exact the aspect is. So it's sort of like this one between Mercury and Sag and Venus and Libra is pretty thick. This opposition is really thick. So those are like the two most prominent ones. So whenever you're coming up with the story or the occult meaning that you're generating, you kind of have to lean into it. So because we've got the sun and the moon together in Scorpio, that means it's a new moon. We won't be able to see the moon at night. We kind of have to begin to look for what's going on here. And the good news about this particular arrangement is that Mars is in charge of Scorpio and it's at home. So the sun and the moon are both sort of subservient to Mars right here. And Mars is in charge of Scorpio. So it's like a time for asserting yourself, aggression, a time for taking action. And I was talking to my friend on the phone last night about the difference between like an Aries Mars and a Scorpio Mars. Aries is very in your face right now. Scorpio is this long, steady drive, the steady aggressiveness. So this is good. It's a time to really allow the deep, motivating. It doesn't have to be anger necessarily, but there's certainly an aggressive heat. It's definitely a fighting, directing energy. It's something that you have to cut through and push forward to do. It's got some sting. It's what's in charge. Now, the problem, if we're going to call it a problem, is that Mars is very, very close to the sun. So anytime a planet is close to the sun, it tends to sort of obscure it. The moon is a perfect example of it. Every time there's a new moon, when the moon is close to the sun, you can't even see the moon. And that's similar. So when something's near the sun, as we're spinning around on Earth, we can't see that. So now, when you can't see something, when you can't label it, when you can't notice it clearly, um, sometimes things get lost. Things get kind of under the beams of the sun that you don't. It's definitely there. It's definitely having an impact, but it may not be the most noticeable. So, because Mars is at home in Scorpio, I think that it doesn't make it as serious. It's not as disastrous if, like, let's say this was happening Mars in Libra when that happened. That would be much trickier. That would be much more challenging. So this, it's it isn't maybe totally clear, but that's mitigated in some ways by having Mars in Scorpio. So that's that's sort of what's going on, and because Mars is there, and that's where the buck stops. That's where the energy stops moving for Scorpio. There's a sense where you don't have to factor in more details. You don't have to overcomplicate it. It's just there's this persistent force and drive, and depending on which section of your chart it is, you're instructed to tell a different story. So for me, this is like my third house. This is like running errands and my siblings and writing and communicating in sort of your everyday way. Um, like it's like running your errands is definitely a thing. Like get it all done. So where will I be whenever this is happening? I'm gonna be at the end of my trip to Portland because I wanted to check out a farm because I keep on talking about going to a farm. So there's gonna be. I'm glad to know that there's a lot of drive and a lot of ethics for work ethic. Excuse me, ethics. Blah, blah, blah. Work ethics. That's good to know. That's good to know. So I'll be able to really channel my body, or at least I'm being inspired to do, to just really get to work and put out the energy and do the tasks. Like there's a great kind of focus thing there for me. Obviously, going to the airport is gonna mean walking to the train station, taking the train station to the bus station, and then getting on a plane, and then transferring planes, and then getting on another bus, and then getting picked up by my farmer host. So like there's so many different things that I'm just gonna have to stay on top of and stay focused on. Not sure exactly where it's gonna be playing out in your chart, what story it would inspire. Obviously, you're living your life, and I don't have access to that. But whatever the area is, where do you need to have that momentum, that drive? It's happening. We're all giving energy to something. We may not always know exactly what it is, but it is happening. So that's kind of there. The sun is pulling in everything that's going on in Leo, which is empty, as you can see here. Leo and Cancer. There's no planets there, so the story sort of stops. Stops, of course. For me, it's my group of friends and my alone time, my artistry. All of that is sort of being pulled in. So, like my network, my friend group, my alone time, my writings, my creativity, that my unconscious is sort of being pulled in. And I do think it is just a reminder to write, to share ideas, which is a good thing. Right now I'm being conscious of how many times I'm saying I'm going to attempt to not do that. Because I just don't necessarily like to hear it whenever other people are doing it. So that is what's happening there, and it's contained. So we can really just sort of stop there, but the thing to do is then to go, okay, but from this point where Mars, the sun, and the moon are, they're being opposed by Uranus. So again, it's like a sudden abrupt shift and change. Some sort of like new novel surprise thing. So I'm thinking of yesterday when I'm on the phone, and then the light above the stove just sort of like lowers and then gets brighter again, and it's like, wait, how is that even happening? There's some sort of like sudden just change. Boop. Um, an opposition is not the nicest and the most friendly of things. So it's like there's this sudden desire to, like, well, there's this sudden arising phenomenon, there's sudden shift that just sort of comes out of left field, a sort of springing on you happens. And then all of a sudden that direction that you were so strongly focused on it has to be kind of reevaluated. It kind of has to be reevaluated. Um, this is a fixed axis. So Scorpio and Taurus, they're like the heart of a season. So we'll be in the heart of fall at this point. And this Uranus is hanging out in spring, so it's like interesting, like in a beautiful, comfortable, something around beauty and comfort is being triggered a little bit. I don't know, like that one's interesting, but it's pretty close to exact. So, I guess it just depends. So like for me, this is foreign travel, moving long distances. That's this region of my chart. Something related to philosophy or God. So it's like an idea from like a higher institution, something that just sort of like, whoa, like causes like a full stop. Uranus is so sporadic. Uranus is so sporadic that I don't think it's like a durable thing, but so that's sort of what's coming up for that aspect. And then here, Neptune is so dreamy and mystical and global. What would that, what's like a general way of working with those? It's like, ugh. It's like, don't be intoxicated. Don't be intoxicated as you're like going so intensely for something. Like that could be it. That could be a story you tell about it. Or like some sort of humanitarian thing, maybe? Like, it's pretty strong. It's like 5 degrees away, and it's definitely visible. It's just Neptune, the farther out you get, Neptune like being the last planet, it's like the edge. It's like the dreamy thing. Man, for me, again, I keep talking about myself just because this is the writing thing, and I'm like, something about my partnerships, something about my contracts, my commitments, fueling this drive, and I'll be kind of at the end of my trip, so I'm just imagining there's going to be this sort of like sudden idea, sudden philosophy, sudden dreaming energy that starts to funnel and changes. There's gonna be a shift in a new cycle in an emotional intense directiveness is sort of like the thing that's coming, and I'm like, okay, what area of your life is that? So like, let's say you're my friend who has Scorpio in the 12th house, or my friend who's a Scorpio rising, or my friend who has where is her Scorpio? I guess it's her relationships. Like a sudden idea, a sudden clarity, a sudden event triggers this like completely new kind of directive. So those are, though, that triangle, it does intersect here. Again, it's not as strong as it was. It used to be this nice little trine sextile. It's like a very harmonious sort of arrangement. It's lost a little bit of that power, but there's still some sextile energy that's going to Pluto. So again, is this even a planet anymore? Is Pluto real? Do we want to consider it in the story or not? It's sort of up for debate. It is a dwarf planet. I believe there's another planet named Charon next to it. Let me see. Pluto and Charon. Charon? A love story. Why do Pluto and Charon orbit around nothing? Like, it's just so fascinating. It's the largest of Pluto's 5 moons. At half the size of Pluto, is the largest known satellite relative to its parent body. Same surface of Charon always face each other, a phenomenon called mutual tidal locking. It's really interesting. So they're like literally always staring. Very, very interesting. So it's quite a show. Let me go back to this. So that object that we've identified has gotten significations for being something even beyond, well, most of the time, beyond even dreams, beyond even the collective, like, unconscious of Neptune. It's even further. It's like every once in a while we learn something new from the fossil records. Like, it's not always, like, you don't often get to ooh, it's like subatomic even. Like, to me it's like the Big Bang kind of a thing. It's like we think we know that there was like a small point from which everything began, and it's, to me, that's just like the creation story. It's like this, whoa, like there's evidence that it all just sort of came to be. It's like, wow, like that kind of idea is really magnificent, and it's in Capricorn, which is about achievement and kind of working towards the top that can be experienced in a specific, like, lifetime. So it's near the end of Capricorn. Pluto is on its way into Aquarius. There's a sense that the dream is for transformation in how our society functions, like a deep thing. Pluto isn't closer to us than Neptune, but sometimes it is. Sometimes Neptune is further away than Pluto. That's not happening right now. I thought that was just so fascinating to me when I figured it out. Like, wait, Pluto's not always the furthest planet from. Sometimes it's closer. I'm just like, that is so marvelous. That is so marvelous to me. But yeah, so that triangle is here now. Those are the only ones that are directly influencing this sun and moon by aspect, right? But then this shape cuts across both of them, and it's this Saturn to Mercury to Venus. Let's talk about the best thing first, which is this Venus in Libra. So nice, so lovely. Like, wait, let me go to the chart of the moment right now. Are we out of it? I don't think Venus has moved in. I think we're still at the end of Libra. Let me double check. Yeah. So right now, at the time of this, on November 4th, we've got Venus in Virgo still, which is just not the easiest one. Not the easiest one to deal with. So it'll be nice that it moves out of that awkwardness and moves into a sort of more like, okay, we're not caught in the middle between the I and the we. Like, we're in the we. And the love likes to be in the we. It likes to be connected. It likes to be balanced. It likes to be fair. It likes to have that sort of proportion correct, as opposed to the analysis to determine it. I mean, Virgo is important, but Libra has, like, the Virgo thing has already happened, and now we're into the balance. We know what to do. We know what the expectations are. Boom. That's nice. And thank God it is helping this Mercury in Sag, because Mercury in Sag is, I mean, it could be worse. It could be Mercury in Pisces, but Mercury in Sag is definitely next. The thing about Mercury and Sag energy, I quite like talking to Mercury and Sag people, but they're not using the messaging capacity in a way that feels really grounded, like it would be in Virgo, for instance, or even as, like, curious as it would be in Gemini. It's a little closer to that, perhaps, but it's just so optimistic and hopeful that, well, and again, that's not bad. It's not bad for that to be, but it's so... I want to see where Byron Katie... Where is her Mercury? Byron Katie Mercury. Birth chart. Let me see. She definitely has some sad stuff going, but I want to double check. Yeah, she has Mercury and Sag with Venus conjunction. Very, very sweet. Very, very sweet, optimistic. But yeah, I've definitely been feeling that lately with her modality. It's like her words are just so... the optimism and the love emanating from her is so incredible. It's like literally a spell. It's literally a spell. But yeah, you've definitely got to find a balance between that and... Like, I mean, the way that I'm understanding and integrating with her story is that she was deeply, deeply, deeply suffering, and then she had that glimpse of sort of, whoa, here we are. Look at this cockroach. Like her whole entire perspective kind of cracked open to the what isness, and it's a very sweet, lovely modality. Um, but yeah, it has its limits. The work has its limits. It has its shadow side, I think. And yeah, it clarifies that for me a little bit. But again, the sweetness of Libra coming in, I'm bringing her energy in because I think her modality is incredible and it's so helpful. But it doesn't necessarily change the grim harshness of reality. That's part of the system, and it's not something that you can just sort of like, yes, you can question it, but to a point, then sometimes you do run up against that sort of like harsh, disgusting, horridness, which is part of what it means to be manifested. So that sextile, communication may be a bit ungrounded, it may be a bit optimistic, but there's a lovingness to it. There's a lovingness to it. That balancing with this square to Saturn, which is like so serious, but so slippery. Since Saturn, this is Saturn's like home base, so it's left its home territory, and it's just moved into Jupiter territory. Jupiter, I'm not gonna say unfortunately, but it is like it's not making any aspects that are there's so many different aspects you can come up with. I'm sure if I added in other types of aspects, there would be more. But again, for me, the occult art, there's a point where it's like diminishing returns. It starts to just look very messy, and these things could go on for like literally forever. But yeah, my energy seems to work best with like a slightly smaller number of symbols. This is like a healthy balance. If I'm really trying to dig deep on a specific thing, then I'll use this platform just because it's got a little more. I'm annoyed they don't have the part of fortune on here, and they need to have new moon charts. I don't want to have to calculate it every time. Maybe they do. Maybe they've updated it. No. See, yeah, this one is just the prettiest, and the colors are my favorite. So, yeah, it is whatever. This one, AstroSeek, is probably the most robust, so that's the one I'm going with now. But the limits, the boundaries of Saturn, having to sort of help negotiate with this super optimistic kind of, it's just a bit sloppy. Like the details, I think, get lost. I think the details can get lost in that energy, which isn't a problem because sometimes we need that big picture, that love redirection, which I think is what Byron Katie offers so incredibly well. But yeah, I don't know necessarily if some of the nuances and the details are sort of like just brushed under the rug kind of a thing. I'm not saying that that's what she's doing. When you look at her chart, and you try and start to tell a story. So I mean, she has a Mars in Scorpio, which is right now, and the moon conjunct it. It's so fascinating. Like that is such a harsh thing to experience. That moon in Scorpio. Again, Mars is in Scorpio. Like I really do think she went all the way. I think I'm not saying that she's wrong. But I'm saying that like man, her chart is so great.
Because the challenge of having Mercury and Scorpio, Mercury and Sag, is totally mitigated a huge deal by this Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer is just so phenomenal, so nurturing, so abundant, and it's so well. Oh man, and there's this in conjunction between Jupiter, so it's like the finger of God is just like literally just like forcing itself to integrate. It is not an easy integration. It's like fire and water, but like boom, like there is something so intense about her and something so beautiful about her modality and her energy. Like, just go sign up for one of her things. I was able to volunteer for a while, but yeah, I mean, I want her brand to go in a different direction than it's going. Um, I want a more sort of relaxed, like documentary kind of, because that's more what I think would be valuable, just as opposed to just focusing on her modality. I want to like explore her interacting with other people. Like, I want to follow her around. Um, but I mean, the work is so important. I just wanted more from that, and I think I just sort of got left when they got rid of their marketing person. I think I just kind of was viewed as part of that, and yeah, I don't know. I that's not my favorite thing. That's not my favorite thing that ever happened, but it was a good experience. Talking well about her at the same time as trying to understand like Mercury, the details, and keeping track of the like the finer things. It isn't something that I think is going to be a strength. Um, it isn't something that I think is going to be a strength, but there is a lot of love and a lot of social justice kind of vibes trying to mitigate that. So let's see. That Saturn is pulling that balance there. Slippery but real boundaries. Jupiter, I said again, whoops. But I'm becoming aware. Jupiter in Taurus, not aspected. Retrograde. Wow, all of these planets are retrograde. North Node. What else should we be saying? What else should we be saying at the moment of this new moon? I feel like that pretty much sums it up. It's like a hmm. It is intense. It is an intense period. An intense emotional instigation suddenly fueled by like a dream of deep transformation is sort of like the most prevalent theme, at the same time as a conversation that is loving but slightly ungrounded, having to negotiate with real limits and boundaries. It's, to me, it's so much what I just said on my Instagram story. Let me see. Let's see. Oh my gosh, like, this is my friend using AI stuff. Like, he's completely transformed his presence to being like so interesting. Okay, where is this? Let me come here. Um, so yes, so this individual, his name is John Hillstead, and he creates a lot of really likable. He's a coach, so he given his following, like, we're trying to do something similar, but he seems to have such a wider audience. But I think the words and the messages that he's saying are not very grounded. I don't think that they make sense, because he's basically implying that like we are the ones who limit our experience. That it's us, that we're the ones doing it. And I'm like, No, like there is an absolute, there is an ultimate boundary. Matter matters. I know that this won't be like, okay, let me see if I can play it for you guys.
Make sure I got this clear. You're telling me that I'm a high vibrational, multidimensional, eternal spiritual being temporarily incarnated in a vessel and nothing matters except for what I decide matters? There's no...
I decide what matters. It's like your I capacity is a product of the matter. I don't know. I just don't. I feel like that type of authority and power, I haven't witnessed it. I haven't witnessed it. I've heard about it. People that can defy the laws of gravity, walk on water, turn water into wine, feed the 5,000. I'm using those stories because, again, those are the ones that are the most prominent. Never have I ever encountered someone who could actually do that in a way that seems to defy the laws of physics. We do feed lots of people now. We can take boats and we know how to make wine. Like, I'm not saying that we're not advancing in our capacity, like vaccinations and all these amazing different things that people are doing, like blow my mind. But this is an incredibly egotistical worldview, likely to cause dangerous and destructive disassociation from truth, meaning the actual embodied experience. I guess it's my little free antiviral thing. The actual embodied experience of what you call the so-called lower self, something I can't deny is my experience now. And I hope that something I, could apply to anyone, like the people experiencing the boundaries of reality. I don't think that framing things this way, meaning his way, will do anything other than tickle our egos, or the ego, which seems to very much be a product of this physical body. It's like when you attempt to frame things from that perspective, you're like talking from this higher self, and I'm like, well, but what about the lower self? Like, to me, they're the same self. Like, it's, yes, we can perceive. Oh, I'll just keep reading it. Yes, it is only a temporary existence, but I don't think there is much evidence that anything that is you outside of your impact will remain upon your body's demise here. Why make stuff up? Like, and call it truth. I mean, language is such a nuanced thing. It's such a nuanced thing. But I find that in my experience, limits do exist. For example, seen by 14. My Instagram is giving me the feedback that 14 people have experienced this. They didn't tell me if they watched it for 1 second, 2 seconds. They didn't tell me if they agreed with him or me. They didn't tell me if it made sense or not to them. Like, I don't know. I understand that very few people watch these, but I love astrology and I continue to do it. And every now and then I do have received a booking. Like, I'm aware of these boundaries and these limitations. But if I'm going to just change my mind and say, like, no, people are going to interact with me the way that I want, it's just so narcissistic, and it's in its own bubble. Like, he's a part of my experience. I want to be open to the idea of changing my behavior and manifesting more abundance and beauty. But it's like, I feel like there's an attachment to this realm that might be helpful. That might be what makes it possible for us to have a collective experience in the first place. So I hope that the nuances of that are coming across in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but that's sort of the chart. So thank you guys for hanging out. You can tell that I'm a touch congested, but luckily it doesn't feel bad. Could be ragweed. Just figuring it all out. So I believe love, light, and the snake's bite is the thing to say. And I'm gonna make sure is that. Yeah, it's definitely backwards. I wonder if there's a way to mirror this. That would be nice. But I kind of like to be able to see if I'm in frame. I'm just a bit lazy. So got peanuts in my teeth. Peanuts in my teeth. Alright, love, light, and say goodbye. Talk to you guys later. And